Welcome back to another episode of MMA Creators Podcast. And I'll be real, Leo, I said to you last night, let's not even bother with last night's card. I don't know how you feel about it, but there is nothing to write home about. I can't even think of one standout moment. In fact, I can think of a standout moment.
I think Khalil Roundtree's in there.
No.
Nothing doing for you?
Was you surprised, shocked, entertained, really, at any point? Throughout the card?
To be fair, I mean, Anthony Smith was always an uphill battle coming on short notice for one, but I thought he looked okay, to be fair. I thought he did well to get as far as he did in that fight. I have to give him some credit. I actually put a bit of money on him, just a tiny little pun on him, because the odds were good. I was like, fuck it.
I'm gonna tell a funny story.
No, don't say it. I will say I'm not addicted to gambling. I'm not.
That's not what I was gonna say.
I thought that's where you were going with it. But yeah, I mean, he looked okay. Khalil Roundtree was a nice finish. I'm glad the ref saved him from that hammer fist from hell, which Khalil was charging up. But apart from that, yeah, I will agree. The card wasn't stellar. I mean, Song Yadong looked good. I mean, I had him winning, very dominant from him. But yeah, nice kite routine, isn't it? It was a routine fight night. Another Apex staple, I think, is probably the
I'll give a funny story just on that, and then we'll move on. Just because you said about Anthony Smith, I don't really bet at all anymore, at least. And even when I did, it would never be big amounts. I'd just do a few quid here on a couple of accumulators and whatnot. The biggest bet I ever wagered was ever in my life, not just sport, ever. I don't really gamble at all. So even been to a couple of casinos in my life. I haven't even really bet there. The most I could bet on the app I had at the time was £125. It said you couldn't do any more than that on a single fight. And I had £125 on Anthony Smith at 7-1 odds against Magomed Ankalaev. And that's when he snapped his ankle in the first.
Oh, no.
And I just laughed.
Fucking hell. I mean, that's crazy putting that on Anthony Smith as it is, though. Let's be honest.
I was confident.
That's fucking wild. I don't know what's the thought process behind that.
I know it sounds funny in retrospect, but this was actually at a slightly different time where he did have a nice little bit of momentum, and stylistically I did think he matched up a little bit nicer with Ankalaev at the point, and I thought, I kind of fancy him in this, but didn't go my way.
That was a while ago as well. I get what you're saying, though, in terms of like your knowledge of the game as well, because back in the day, this is in hindsight as well, because I thought I knew what I was talking about, and I didn't. I picked Benavidez to beat Figueiredo, which terrible pick. Obviously, that went brutally the other way.
Statistically is one of the worst bets of all time.
Yeah, it was wild. He had he was quite a big underdog, to be fair. Like significant, not huge odds, but I think he's got a good crack. I was massively wrong, as Figueiredo went on to prove. But yeah, let's jump into 296, because let's be honest, as we said, that fight night really left a lot to be desired. So we can just run through 296, because I have to say,
I need to say one last thing on it.
It's a pretty good way to round off the year.
I need to say one last thing on last night. I just have to get this off my chest. I still feel somewhat annoyed. I haven't been as annoyed watching a fight as I was last night in the 5th round, when Chris Gutierrez is arguably 3-4 rounds down on the scorecards. Mark Montoya's in his corner saying, we need a finish. We need to do something spectacular. You've just sat in your closed guard for the better part of 3 rounds. Absolutely no idea what the thought process behind that was. Not trying to throw up submissions, not trying to sweep, not trying to create separate. Have no idea what that was all about. Didn't look particularly tired, so it wasn't necessarily a conditioning thing. Comes out in the 5th round. Imanari rolls onto his back.
I know. It's crazy. I was watching. I found highlights online to watch it back, and I saw that
of all time.
It's up there.
Has to be.
You could wager Glover Teixeira against the Prochazka when he jumped that guillotine.
No way. No way. How many submissions does Glover have on his record against tired and weathered at the point Yuri?
Oh no, I've got another one. Who was the guy who fought Sean O'Malley when Sean O'Malley was on one leg in like a second fight? And the guy, literally in the third round, the guy shot a takedown when he was
That
piecing
was
him up
low,
on the
actually.
feet. Sean was on one
low.
leg.
That's a fair
and he
point.
shot a fucking
That was low,
takedown. I think that might be it.
That was low.
That might be it. Yeah.
The last time I was that annoyed
296.
was Dylan Dennis, Logan Paul. But as you were.
Yeah, that's up there as well. I mean, that's not surprising though.
That wasn't low IQ. That just annoyed me in terms of performances. But sorry, as you were going.
Yeah. I mean, as cards go, as I said, it's pretty stacked. I've got it up here. I mean, from front to back, it's just a fun time. You've got. I mean, I'll just run you through some of the fights, and I'll just get your thoughts, and I'll give you mine. I'll just throw the ones that stick out to me. Honestly, I really like this fight. Bit of a sleeper hit on the card. Cody Garbrandt, Brian Kelleher. I think that's a fun fucking matchup. I can't lie. I weirdly, my brain's just leaning towards Brian Kelleher for some reason, but I want a Cody Garbrandt win there. But it's just realistically, you've got two knockout artists there. Really, that's what you're getting. What are you thinking about that?
It's just interesting to see where Cody's sort of at in his mind more so than his career, because obviously we've seen the heights that he's reached, and we have seen somewhat of a resurgence, not necessarily in the caliber of guys that he's been beaten, but more so in his approach to the game. We've seen more of his wrestling, which we know he has incredible wrestling, and we've seen his really good timing, and he's starting to pair that with his boxing a little bit more. So I am intrigued to just see if Cody Garbrandt slyly has a bit of a resurgence, a bit of a renaissance period, and gets a good win over Brian Kelleher, who, by the way, is often used as that sort of leap pad, if you like, a little bit of a leap pad for getting into those rankings and sort of kicking on a little bit, you know. Brian Kelleher's good everywhere, solid on the feet, can do damage everywhere, good grappler, can cause some issues in the jiu-jitsu realm. So I think Cody wins that comfortably, just on a skill discrepancy. I think he's just another level.
Yeah, I think he's got that experience.
But yeah, good to see him back.
Like, you can say he's been on a downfall, but it's like the level is still there compared to the sort of lower echelons of each division.
Exactly.
Like, people forget that. Like, who was it Cody Garbrandt fought in his recent fight? He looked very good. Just, you know, not like incredible, but like, you know, it was just a very solid performance. Didn't really look in trouble at all. Like, it was against a guy, an up and comer. I can't remember his name. Forgive me for that. But that's my. Just to sort of boost the point I'm making about the levels. You know, to quote Corey Anderson, being levels in this game. There are levels in this game. Aldana Carl Rosa. I think that's quite a fun one. Good to see Ariane Aldana back in there. I don't think we can brush through that. I think it's a fun women's matchup, personally. I think I've always liked Aldana, mainly because her boxing's just crisp. She's got a couple good few knockouts on her record. Yeah, I mean, that's a fun one.
I didn't have much for
you
that.
Not got anything? I was just wondering if you got any thoughts, and I was waiting.
I'm thinking of the main card of all the people we've got, and I'm thinking, come on, let's not mess the people about.
Well,
Arena Aldana is fun.
I'll finish off with the
She is fun.
Yeah. I will give you, though, featured prelim, which realistically, as you say a lot is more important than being on the main card. Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell, which I think is a load of fun. And for me, I think you can talk about Josh Emmett maybe being a bit over the hill and past it, but I think the size difference is going to be absolutely huge for him. I think he's going to have the strength advantage. I don't think he's going to get submitted. You can talk about his weaknesses maybe after that the Rodriguez triangle, but I think Emmett will put him away. I think he has the power to do it. I think he'll clip Bryce Mitchell in some capacity. I think he just has that power. I think Bryce is a little bit liable on the feet, as good as he looked in his last performance. But yeah, I'm going with Josh Emmett. I think he gets the finish.
I say this every time I see Josh Emmett fight. He's not a bad fighter, obviously. Incredible power. Pound for pound, one of the hardest hitters. He really does have dynamite in that right hand. The only thing that I think when I watch Josh Emmett fight is just, I feel like his setups to that right hand are fairly
too predictable
and telegraphed. And I think when you hit a certain level again, I just think that they see that. I think you have to do more. And of course, he's an incredible wrestler, and we know that. But what's he going to do what's his path to victory? I guess knock him out, right? That's the sort of easy narrative, I guess, in this fight.
Pretty much.
Bryce Mitchell, to be perfectly honest, I really didn't take Bryce Mitchell down as someone to step in short notice on a fight like this. I really didn't. I just didn't expect.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that just because he's not
He is the
far
wildest
removed.
guy.
He is, but he's not. He's actually very intelligent. People forget this. He is university educated.
No.
You do know that, don't
If
you?
he's university educated,
You
then
do
I
know that,
deserve a
don't you?
Nobel Peace Prize because
A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't.
He's
And I'm
like legit an
surprised.
engineer.
Is he? I'll
It's
give him credit then. Fair enough.
It's semi an act.
Well, maybe in terms of some of his street smarts, then. Like, yeah, of course he plays up to it, but he definitely does believe some of what he says. Let's be real. Let's
100%.
not.
Yeah, 100%.
There's definitely some sincerity in there.
Is he nuts?
Yeah.
100%. But it doesn't mean he's not switched on.
He's nuts, but yeah, all right.
And my point
I'll allow
is,
that.
he's not far removed from the Ilya Topuria fight, where I heard him speak about it after it, and he was violently ill going into that. And he even said, it's not to say if he wasn't that he definitely would have won, but it maybe would have it definitely would have looked somewhat different. We've never seen Bryce look like that. And I don't think it was just completely Topuria just dominating. Bryce just looked weak. He looked lackluster. He just looked so off the boil.
Yeah, it's a case of both sort of things, isn't it? Both factors.
So the reason I say that is just because I heard him say how he would never step into a fight when he's not 100% again, or at least close to. So he must feel super confident, A, in the matchup, and B, where his conditioning's at and where his health's at. He's had a couple of niggles. And I'll be perfectly honest, I much prefer this fight to the original fight with Giga Chikadze. What do you think about that comment?
Yeah, I agree, actually. I think it's nice for Josh Emmett to get back in there. I think after he's been a bit of a skid, and it's kind of, you've got a bit of a narrative arc there with the whole Topuria thing. Both guys losing to Topuria. There's some sort of connection there, which might sell a few extra pay-per-views. Marginal, of course, but it makes for a more interesting matchup. Because for one, it also gives sort of an insight into how good Topuria is, really. But yeah, I just like it's more fun as well. You've got a submission artist versus a knockout artist, really. You've got guys who are more threats at finishing the fight, as a sum together. So it's a fun one. I think it's a perfect sort of featured prelim sort of fight. Get those two guys sort of back on the horse, if you will. And obviously, Mitchell is coming off a win, but momentum, isn't it, really? That's the case. It's building momentum.
Well, it's a good thing that you said momentum there, because you have a look at the both guys. Obviously, Bryce Mitchell coming off a win. But then you have a look at Josh Emmett coming off a very, very dominating performance against him from Ilya Topuria. What was it? 50-43, took a lot of damage in 5 rounds. Like that, yeah. And previous to that was pretty much knocked out and then submitted by Yair Rodriguez. So you look at his age, you look at his recent performances. I know it's an obvious narrative to paint, but it's necessary to have the conversation of where's he at in regards to his physical capabilities, because Bryce Mitchell is sort of hitting that nice bit of his prime where he's sort of around that 30 mark. We know that he's got great conditioning and he'll push a higher pace. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to just catch Josh Emmett in somewhat of a transition. I don't think he's going to be able to necessarily just out wrestle him, at least early on, because that's usually Bryce's game plan. Uses his hands, goes to the single, and then goes to that single leg, runs a pipe, and then sort of works his game there. It's going to be hard to do that against Josh Emmett because he is strong, he is powerful, and he is well conditioned. Can he catch him in a sort of transition and a scramble? I do believe so, but I think he might scrape it.
That's where I'd see it.
I think Bryce might just scrape it on the points, to be perfectly honest with that one.
It's a hard one to call. It really is, because it's such obviously the short notice factor, and also they're just such an interesting, they're very polar opposites, really, in terms of like their physical build as well as their fighting sort of style. So it's a really hard one to predict. Yeah, hair as well. Yeah, very good point. It's a fun one. I'll go with Emmett just purely off gut. I'm not really much in terms of technical analysis and breakdown. I just think I can just see Emmett finding a finish and getting back in the win column, but won't be surprised either way how that goes. My fight that I'm really looking forward to personally, Luke and Garry. You can talk about all the drama and whatnot. We've done that to death. The internet's done that to death. I think it's blown out of proportion. I'm pretty sure you feel the same. As a fight, purely on the fight perspective, I think it's going to be really do think it's going to be a clinic from for me and Garry. I really do. It's the only way I've always seen this fight, and even before it got made, I always said if they were to match up, I think it would be pretty clear. And I love Vincente Luque as well, but I just think like Ian Garry on the feet, he's young enough that he's going to be able to patch those holes and mistakes he's made in the past. Like he got clipped against, was it Son Kanan? He got dropped by, but then again came back and rallied and looked very good. And as I've said before, being able to rally back, you know, from adversity is arguably more impressive than just dominance. So I think it's going to be a really good clinic from Ian, and I think it's going to be a case of really sort of silencing the crowd and the haters, because he's dealt with a lot of stuff, probably more than any fighter I've seen in a long time. I don't think that's even hyperbolic to say. I think it's been one of those cases where the mob has been after him really for months now. It is quite crazy. It's a weird one, unjustified or not. Whether what you think, you know, I think this is going to be a chance for him to step up on the big stage. I'm more looking forward to the press conference than the actual fight, because that's going to be entertaining. But yeah, I've got Ian Garry probably by a TKO. I can see it first round. I really can. Any of those 3 rounds, I can see him getting a finish. And I know Luque's durable, but I don't know. It's going to be youth over experience for me in this one.
I do agree with what you said. I can't remember a time where there was as much noise. I genuinely can't remember a
Name
time.
Someone else, right?
I can't, but fantastic news for Ian Garry. Whether he likes it or not, it's fantastic news. You've got the biggest card of the year, the last card of the year. You've got the biggest personalities on that card. Tony, Paddy, Colby, Leon. Then you've got Ian Garry chucked on there. So he's got all the attention. So like you said, silence the crowd. He's, rightly or wrongly, he's created a stage now. Ian Garry has created a stage and he's created a platform to go out there and deliver his best performance to date. And like you said, silence the critics, catapult his name into the title picture within one fight. And what we have seen from Ian Garry is that he has improved every fight. He has patched holes every fight. And one thing that is impressive when you listen to him, when you look at the Song fight, when he got dropped even by that short left hook, when he assessed it immediately after, he could even remember the thought process of where he was being cheeky and tried to take a little bit too much in the pocket and then got clipped. So even just having that presence of mind and then going against someone like Luque, who's obviously got experience against, he's felt before. Now, when we have a look at Luque, it's the obvious, simple narrative of we've probably seen the best days of him, but he's still very capable. We have seen him get finished not that long ago. True. Brutally, to be perfectly honest. It was kind of brutally. Now, can I see a world in 3 rounds where Luque just doesn't have the footwork or have the reach to get close to Ian Garry? 100%. But then can I also see in a world where he's a little bit more aggressive, makes it a little bit uncomfortable in the pocket, and then lets heavy hooks go? Yeah, I can. But I'm steering much more towards you. I definitely think that Ian Garry does have the ticker. I do believe he has the ticker to stand on the biggest stage and deliver. And we always talk about Conor McGregor this and Conor McGregor that, and whatever you want to say, they're not the same people. They're Irish at the end of the day, and they're confident. That's where the similarities end on that note, to be honest. But the biggest question is, can he do the Conor McGregor of delivering when the lights are the brightest? And I truly believe he can, because like you said, I cannot think of a time recently when there was this much outcry for a fighter. I really can't.
It is wild, isn't it? I really can't either. Then, no, I don't remember someone being so hated. Like, there's probably someone we're missing, right? But then,
there's not.
I don't know. Off the top of my head, no. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Because it's been everyone. Because even the people who are usually pretty on the fence, even they have sort of piped up here and there, because there's so many different angles and elements to what's been going on with Ian Garry. Whether it's, by the way, a little bit of a side tangent. Did you hear the song that fella made about him?
No.
You've not heard the Ian Garry song?
No, I didn't.
Oh my
No, I
word!
might.
It's
Maybe I have. And I'm realizing, but I don't think so. No,
it's a banger. This
that's
geezer's
crazy. Someone's
made
written a
an
song.
absolute tune. I believe he's an artist, or he's one of those sort of comedian artists. You've not heard it?
Oh, okay.
Oh, mate,
I
you've
don't
got
think so. No,
Foggy Fresh, I believe his name
I'll
is, or
have to look it up after this. Yeah.
Froggy Fresh. And he's
Oh,
like,
I
somebody
recognize that
save Ian,
name.
because I don't want to see him. Have you not heard the song? Mate, come
No,
on. With
no.
a 40-year-old
I recognize that
European,
guy's name
gold
though.
digging European. And he's like a hillbilly. It's hilarious. It's a 3-minute diss track on Ian Garry.
I'll have to fuck it
And
I'll
I'm
have a
not,
crack.
I'll be honest as well.
It's
because
crazy, isn't it?
Obviously, I'm in the space of documenting MMA content, but you always want to sort of,
Yeah, I mean, well, both of us, yeah.
you always want to trend jack. That's just that's a method. That's what everyone does. That's what you need to do. Now, how you do that and how you go about that is up to you, and how cryptic you want to, how sort of, not cryptic, how damaging you want to be to that person's profile is completely up to you. But you always want to trend jack.
Yeah, like for me, when I tried to just be unbiased in mine. Yeah, that's what I did. I trend jacked, but I also didn't. I thought it was pretty, obviously with irrespective of the title and the thumbnail, because that's your opportunity to be shameless as fuck. The actual video itself was pretty unbiased on that I made. I didn't even delve into the whole wife stuff at all, really. I just probably spent about 10 seconds on it near the end of the video. It was more just about his antics in the fight game, which I think was, to be honest, that's the more important part. Personally, for me, it's the stuff I care more about. Like, I don't really give a shit about personal drama and your personal life. In regards to fighting, that's what's more important. But that the video still did well, so that was just a small opportunity. So I can openly admit I jumped on the bandwagon, but I like to say I was pretty unbiased.
But that's what you have to do as a content creator. There's no secrets with that. You go on.
No, that's not true. Actually, no, it depends on what you're doing, though. It depends on the style of content you make, because so many creators were just slagging him off and going full in. Like, so many play that sort of quote unquote heel role as content creators in the MMA space.
Oh,
they just
yeah,
go
100%.
all in, sort of nuclear option on every opinion ever. So
100%.
yeah, I don't think there's two different avenues to go.
That's exactly my point. And in truth, it got to a stage where things were happening here and there, and I was going to cover it and whatnot. But and you asked earlier, when's the last time something's been this big? I can tell you that it hasn't of recent, because the reason I say that is because even when there was a few things happening, I was like, oh, cool, I'll cover that. Obviously not in a super negative light. But it got to a point where it was so intense on every channel, every person, every conversation, that it was... I felt like I didn't want to be another person that was jumping on the bandwagon to just spit venom on this person that I don't know and I can't really comment on so much, because it gets to that level.
That's what I mean. I don't even have the heart to do it. It's weird.
It gets to that level where...
Do you know what you feel the same way, right? It's just strange.
100%. It gets to that level where it's 100%. Yeah. There's a level where you open yourself up to a certain level of feedback and criticism. 100%. That's the internet. I 100% get that.
Of course.
And everyone knows that. But then it gets to a level where it's really intense bullying, and then it's really intense just constantly just jumping on every single thing. And I thought, you know what, this is so intense, and not even to take it down a dark path, but we've seen in the spotlight before with celebrities, we've seen the repercussions that can come from things like this. We've seen people take their own lives, and I'm not necessarily saying that's where it's heading or going, but it's not outside of the realm of possibilities, these conversations, because you're getting death threats every day through your DMs, and your comments are going crazy, and everyone online is speaking about you. You can't leave your house.
The one thing that really annoys me, just quickly, if I can just rant though, is like, on that, you think if you say something like what you're saying, as in it's a bit crazy and unjustified, which obviously I completely agree. So I hate the MMA community in a lot of ways, because they'll just call you soy or a pussy if you say something like that. I absolutely... Well, in terms of what? The only thing I would say
definitely
that I
semi-justified. I need to put that out there.
In what way? You say
I'm not justifying online bullying abuse. By the way, that's not what I'm.
No, of course. No, which part
I'm
are
just
you justifying?
I'm the way I say justifying is you're justifying the fact that certain things are naturally going to open you up to heavy criticism and online trolling, and you have to be okay with that when you're going into it. That's what I mean about justified, which he knows, by the way. He knows there was a ton of stuff that he's done, said, and gone about things in a certain way that is obviously going to open him up to criticism and trolling.
I agree with that.
You tread that line, but then it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that to deeper levels, which is where it's gone with Ian Garry, where I just didn't want to be another person to pile on. I just didn't. In simple truth, I just felt.
It just feels weird, isn't it?
As a person. That's what I felt like. I felt weak as a human being for sort of projecting, criticizing, and essentially.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The ironic thing is you'll get called weak for saying the opposite.
I'll say
you get called weak by the MMA community for saying the opposite. It's crazy, isn't it? No, exactly. But I think that's why I hate the MMA community in a lot of ways. You know, it's not everybody, of course, but there's so much just toxicity and shit like that it's very tribal. It's a lot of
tribal 100%, and it's a lot of projection. A lot of people don't even realize that they're doing it. They really don't. And when you you look at what is going on in the headlines and the way that people are speaking about them, I'm thinking there's so many. It's almost, if you were to sit at home and scroll through the internet, you would think that flipping user 1286 on Twitter is at the top of his field, the perfect human being and a flawless representation of the human race by the way that they speak. And don't get me wrong, like I said,
they're probably actually just the basement dweller.
Well, they are at the end of the day. And
they fucking are.
That's what they are. And I always like the quote from Gary V, and he says the people booing the loudest are always in the stands, and it's very true. It's very true. You have to be, when you're in a position to be criticized, when you're in a position to be trolled, when you're in a position to get hated, you're also in a position for leverage. Now, we look at all the bad stuff happening in Ian Garry's life, correct. Then we have a look on the right-hand side, and then we have a look at the fact that he's on UFC 296, biggest card of the year, biggest personalities on the card, biggest build-up, more traction than he's ever had. And love it or hate it, he's in the best position his career's ever been in. Now, how that affects his performance, we don't know yet. But let's say it's an incredible performance. He then is in 100% the best performance we've ever been in. And let's not disconnect our memory too far from the man who's headlining the card, Colby Covington, who's had very tumultuous times online as well. Let's just say that. And the last thing I'll say to you, and if you want to go anywhere with it, it's up to you. But last thing I'll say to you is the one thing that I thought, come on, mate. Turning his comments off on Instagram.
Yeah. No. That was the point I was going to say about the things that are justified in terms of criticism is the lawsuit thing and the comments thing.
Lawsuit 100%.
You've got to be willing to take it.
100%.
Yeah. Those two things you've got to be willing. You can't
Agreed.
be. You have to be open to being criticised because of those things. I think.
You
the fight
can't
game is,
bring up lawsuits with that. You can't do that. You can't do that. Not only you can't do that to Sean Strickland. What are you doing in the DMs? In the DMs? What the hell?
Yeah, it's poor. Very poor.
That's what I'm saying. He hasn't helped himself, and he's opened himself up to criticism. I think we'll leave the rest to fight night
because I think we could be having whole new conversations about this on come next Sunday. Which, speaking of, actually, I forgot to mention, will be an MMA Creators podcast first of an in-person episode. So that will be exciting. So that will be full proper camera setup and everything. Hopefully, if all goes to plan. So stay tuned for that. But we will delve into the next one. This one's going to, I'm sure, interest you as it does as much for me. Tony Ferguson, Paddy Pimblett. I know we've touched on it a while back, but there's a lot to be said there because it's a classic veteran versus, if you really even want to call Paddy a prospect, I don't think that's the right term to use for him. But, you've got one guy who's young, fit and hungry versus again, the aging vet, classic story. For me, it's a Paddy win. I think Tony's just done at the top level, let alone not even the top level. I think he's done at the standard level of the lightweight division, which is high. I'm not gonna dispute that. You don't think this fight is competitive?
I
Oh, sorry, you think this fight's competitive? Sorry, rather. I'm not sure. I am going with Paddy, and I'd be happy to be proven wrong. But I'll just say I want Tony to lose for his own sake. I really do. That's really my justification for it.
It's a good point, actually. A lot of people are thinking they want him to win, but they don't really.
If he wins, he's going to be even more deluded than he already is into thinking he can make another run. Not just for a few more wins, but for a title, which, let's be honest, is not happening. So, yeah, I actually would rather Tony lose in the most comfortable way possible. Let's just go with hopefully a 30-27 Paddy for Tony's own physical and mental well-being. That's my.
I don't think that would be the most comfortable, to be honest. I think the most comfortable would be Paddy takes a couple of shots in the first round, which I can. This is how I see the fight going. I'm just going to lay the fight out, and I believe that we're going to be sitting there on Sunday, and I'm going to have a smug look on my face, and I'm going to be able to say I told you so, because I really do feel like I can see into the future with this one. I don't feel like Tony Ferguson's going to be doing bad. I really, really don't. I think he's going to start off nicely. I think that he's not going to be at a crazy pace. He's not going to be crazy athletic. We obviously know that.
Yeah,
he's not where he needs to. He's not where he used to be, 100%. But he's going to be in good shape. He's going to be well conditioned, or at least he's going to be fit or mentally fit, more importantly. And he's going to do okay on the feet to start off with. 100% he's going to do okay on the feet. I even think he may land a couple of shots that sort of raise a couple of eyebrows. 100% I do believe that. But then I do believe they're going to find themselves in a position where either Tony overextends, maybe he steps through into the stance switch, which he's been doing recently, and just finds his feet a little bit out from underneath him, a little bit unbalanced. Yeah. I believe Paddy's going to be able to find a way to the body. I believe he's going to find his way to the back, and I believe that he's going to be able to finish him on the ground. That's how I see this fight going. And I said it before, and I will say
I can see
again,
that as well.
Tony has a lot of skills. And you go back and watch the Bobby Green fight, very competitive. And you actually realise that he got eye poked, he couldn't see throughout pretty much the whole fight. Super competitive. You go back, Chandler, obviously, we know it was looking okay. There's so many times that we can go back and say this and clutching onto straws a little bit. But that's the only reason I screw-faced a little bit when you said he can't compete at lightweights, because I believe there's a ton of lightweights he could still beat, to be perfectly honest. But we don't need to be seeing Tony Ferguson against...
I said at the standard level, so not like the lower bits, but...
Right, okay.
I misworded that. But I think just 6 losses in a row, pretty much getting finished in all of them, it's pretty telling that the writing's on the wall for him. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not sat here saying he's going to be a title contender. It's not going to be
a fairy tale story.
Yeah, that's not what
I know you're not.
I'm sat here saying.
I can see what you're saying about maybe him being competitive early on, even if it is at a slow pace. I can probably see that as well, to be honest. I do agree Paddy will probably find the back, or I think he'll get a decision. He'll just outpoint him maybe, because I don't think Paddy really has that KO power per se, without compromising his own defenses. So I think I can see Paddy will play at range, maybe outpoint. He's got nice kicks. So I think his kicks are quite underrated.
Very
so I can see him using a lot of those to maybe coast to a decision. Yeah. But yeah, as you said, his jiu-jitsu is his core, isn't it, really? So I don't blame you for making that pick. I'll go with the decision. I'll go with the Paddy decision.
I said to him, the other day when
Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, when I even saw him the other day and I was speaking to him, I was saying, how do you see this fight going down? Or how do you see this, not going down, but how do you see your strengths in this fight, let's say? Because I said to him, the way I see it is Tony's super skilled, and you have a lot of skills as well. But I believe the biggest difference in this fight is kind of obvious, I know, but it's just going to be the athleticism. Paddy's athleticism is really kind of slept on, really overlooked. I don't think people quite realise. A lot's made about his defence and he gets hit and Jared Gordon and all of this, and sometimes it clouds people's judgment to look at someone's strengths and weaknesses. And when you actually have a look at Paddy's strengths, he's in incredible shape. Incredible shape. And I can say that firsthand.
I will actually make a point just quickly. Something that people don't talk about. I just want to just jump in here. It's the fact that he is no longer eating horrendously out of camp anymore, unless I'm mistaken there. He's actually been keeping in pretty good shape since that fight against Jared Gordon, which is going to be a huge factor, because let's be real, that was something to perfectly, it was a valid criticism, 100%. Only the best, really, barring any freak natural talent and ability. It's all about the work ethic. There's a reason guys like GSP are still in shape even now. It's because they work hard. And that's why he was such a successful champion. To do that, for Paddy to do that, he's going to need to make those sacrifices, whether he wants to or not. So it's good to actually see him do that. I will give him the plaudits there. Sorry, I didn't want to make a point there, because that could be a huge factor.
I saw him just after his surgery, and he was at Cage Warriors. Just in passing, but I saw him, and I said to him, even when I saw him the other day, I said, you were looking in good shape, very good shape, and it was just after his surgery. And he was sort of saying, when he watched the fight back and he saw his performance and whatnot, he said he didn't even have a performance, or he didn't even do anything, especially with the injury, that even made him want to celebrate or relax or anything. He said he was so disappointed in it that he wanted to keep in good shape, and he didn't feel like he even deserved any aspect of that. But all I was going to say, just going back to the athleticism, I was saying about seeing it firsthand. He's when was I there? Last week, 2 weeks ago? He's a couple of weeks out from the biggest fight of his life on the biggest stage, right? And at Next Gen, when I went down there, they were doing something called King of the Mat, which is basically they get a full room of guys, everyone puts in a fiver. There was 750 pounds in the kitty. So how many people?
Jesus.
That's a lot of people, right?
Fucking hell, yeah.
There's a lot of people there. A lot of people. I've got a video coming out.
It's good fun, though.
Probably next week. And you'll see the amount of bodies on the mat is insane. But the reason I say that is because Paddy, against the words of some of his training partners, said, I'm 100% taking part in that. He loves it. It's a grappling sort
of course, yeah,
realm, so it's a little bit less concerning than maybe striking or sparring or something like that. But as you'll know, a lot of injuries do prevail, especially towards the end side of camp. But I watched him flat out. So basically, as soon as you win, or as soon as you beat someone, you submit someone, there's no breaks, right? So someone can, but the way they do it is like someone can jump on your back, someone can come up behind you and just like rear naked choke you once you've submitted the other person. Cool. So it's super sort of keep your eyes about you. And I watched him grapple for 2 straight hours. Just 2 straight hours. 2 hours non-stop at insane pace, and look somewhat fresh at the end of it for someone that's done that amount of output. So the reason I say that is because when you have a look at the shape,
how many people did he beat?
Can't remember the numbers, but he submitted a lot of people. Like you start off with your sort of same grades. So it's black belt. So obviously those matches were a little bit slower, and then he starts getting to maybe different people that are a little bit more tired, and he starts working his way through a couple. But he probably went through, I don't know, 7 people, maybe 8 people. I don't know, a lot of people. But my point is, when you have a look at his physique, when I had a look at his cardio, and then he's deceptively quick. He covers distance very fast, and especially when he's transitioning on the mat, super slippery. And I just think, I've said it all the time, and I'll say it again, I just believe that's going to be the biggest factor here. If you look at Tony's recent fights, even Michael Chandler, even maybe not Michael Chandler's a bad example,
he's just
but
lethargic.
People like Bobby Green, they just don't quite have that zip.
Yeah,
that I
doesn't
think
have
Paddy
that anymore.
has. Yeah, they just don't quite have that zip. So yeah, I think Paddy gets it done.
Very springy. Springy is probably the way I describe him. If you're talking more on the feet, but I agree with you in every capacity. He's
Mate,
very
his physique's
flexible,
ridiculous.
bendy, springy, bouncy. He's everywhere.
No, his physique's ridiculous.
I agree. He's got very good athleticism as well.
I was looking at him the other day in the gym, and I was thinking he may have one of the best physiques at lightweight. Probably has the best physique at lightweight.
I was going to say in the roster, but you can't put him above Leon Edwards.
Leon Edwards.
The aesthetic god. That's the aesthetic god.
leg-wise, definitely better than Leon Edwards. 100%. You look at the flipping legs on him.
Okay.
The quads
Bold
are
claim.
ridiculous. Ridiculous. He's in
What about
crazy
Khalil
shape.
Roundtree? What about his
Similar.
quads?
Similar. But yeah, I think Paddy gets it done. Either by a submission or I think you're right. I think he'll take it on the points. It'd be hard to finish Tony, to be perfectly honest. And hard to submit. Hard to submit.
Of course, yeah, very true. Yeah, we'll brush through the co-main. Honestly, really not that. Oh wait, we missed. Sorry, we'll brush through Shavkat versus Wonderboy. I've been very vocal on my live streams about how I felt with Wonderboy. I actually think he's got a far better chance than people are giving him credit for, because
I agree.
For me, Shavkat Rakhmonov, as terrifying as he is, his fight IQ against Jeff Neal was sorely lacking. I've mentioned this to you before. I've said it on stream before as well. No head movement against Jeff Neal, who had effectively half a camp in that fight. He was dealing with a load of health issues in the build-up to that fight. And Jeff gave him a run for his money, rocked him bad at one point, really. But Shavkat's chin, to his credit, is made out of stone. But you can't rely on that your whole of your career. You just can't, because eventually it will get cracked. And Wonderboy knows how to find the chin. So if Rakhmonov, he has the strength advantage, let's not get that twisted, but if he makes the mistake of keeping it on the feet rather than getting that takedown, which he can do, I actually think it's Wonderboy's fight to lose. I really do. I think on the feet, I think Wonderboy will beat him. And for me, that's the avenue for him to win. I will still pick Shavkat purely on a logical front. But, you know, oh, you really? You want to? Okay, screw it. I'll say it then. All right, Wonderboy then. I'll go Wonderboy by TKO. I'll say it then. I'll change it. Are you happy there? Are you happy? I'll go with that then. Wonderboy by TKO. But at the same time, it's a fun fight. Let's be real. I love Wonderboy to win purely for the fairy tale narrative, because realistically, that will propel him massively. Not just, you know, the ranking would only take him so far, but in terms of how impressive of a win
just
that is, that might be enough to give him a title shot straight off the bat. Yeah, exactly.
100%.
So
100%.
I love it. I love it for him. I really hope he can get it done. He's the nicest guy in the sport for a reason. I could love him for a Michael Bisping moment. So yeah, I'll go Wonderboy then. Screw it. Yeah, I've been tooting his horn for a long time. So yeah, go for it.
I like to ask this question sometimes just to get perspective on fights. Before I say how I think this is going to play out, let me ask you a question. What are... Now, this is going to sound like a stupid question, but I'd like an answer. What are...
Not selling it well.
The paths to victory for Shavkat Rakhmonov?
I see a takedown, work his way to a rear naked choke. Maybe a guillotine if Wonderboy dips his head, comes in too close. Somewhere, and some clinch work. Some clinch work. That's definitely where Wonderboy would be vulnerable as well. Obviously, he's a karate stance fighter, uses his range well. Not as good in those clinch sort of up close moments where Shavkat will have the strength advantage. That's where the fight's won. It's in the grappling, progress to a submission. Rear naked choke, I would see is the fact to visualize it. It would be a rear naked choke.
So
that's
the path to victory is probably, well, it's definitely leaning to more towards the grappling. That's no surprise against someone like Wonderboy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, similar to what you said earlier, we've got, on one hand, we've got an undefeated guy. So in his head, he cannot lose. No one can beat me. No one can beat me. Everyone I've faced, whether there's been adversity or no adversity, not only have I won, but I've finished them. So confidence-wise, stylistic-wise, everything-wise, I'm going to beat this guy. There's probably not much doubt in his mind that he's going to win. He gets good looks in training. He's faced guys like, he's sparred and faced guys like Garry many times as well, which obviously is not going to be the level of Wonderboy, but similar looks, similar style, so he knows how he sort of feels against people that move in a certain way. What we do know of Shavkat, as you said, which I do agree with, he hasn't always shown the highest IQ moments. He has had a little bit of that sort of undefeated air of arrogance, which you should have, and it is good, but it can work in your detriment. So if he comes out there and believes, I finished everyone, I can finish anyone, this guy's over the hill, he's not on my level, he's old, I can knock him out, if I find the chin, it's going to be over. I'll hit a lot harder. I'm going to walk forward. I can take his shots. He doesn't hit as hard as me. He can do whatever he wants, but I'm going to eat him and walk forward like he did against Jeff Neal. I don't know if I've seen Shavkat show me enough up here to tell me that he's going to win this fight. Not with his skills, but with his...
It's the fight IQ, yeah.
With the fight IQ. And I truly believe in 3 rounds, not 5. This is not 5, this is 3. In 3 rounds, I believe Wonderboy can win 2 rounds here. I really do. I think there could be a round.
Yeah, that's a good point,
And I think it could be a 3rd round, to be honest, that Shavkat may win. Because I believe then he may realise, this is actually kind of tricky on the feet. And maybe I will have to lean on my grappling because I'm getting a little bit more desperate. And maybe he does get to the grappling round, but maybe does struggle to finish him because it takes a little while to get him down because he's actually hard to track down because he's moving backwards and laterally and he's picking you from range. And then he gets to him. But it's a little bit too late. And by that time, we've seen somewhat of a, not lackluster, it's probably the wrong word. I don't think it's going to be lackluster just because that's not his style. But we do see a world in where Shavkat's sort of walking forward and Wonderboy's just cutting angles and just touching. And I think Wonderboy's going to win. I think he's going to win a decision.
I can see him locking his hands, though. Wow. Okay, you're going for it as well. Yeah. I definitely can see Shavkat locking the hands. I feel like that's an inevitability. It's just a matter of when that happens and whether Shavkat really, because obviously I know he'll have that game plan going in. I think yeah, exactly. If he remembers to do it, because he'll definitely have that game plan going in. That's exactly what his coaches will be drilling and telling him to do. It's a matter of inside the cage whether he can actually pull it off. That rush of mental battle, really, it is. It's such exactly. He'll smell blood and he'll look for the finish, and that might be the detriment. So yeah, I can see the Wonderboy decision as well.
And the last thing I'll say on this as well is...
I mean, he's got a chin on him, so it's hard to say whether he'll knock him out, but...
The last thing I'll say on it as well, with this especially... No, you're good. All I was going to say is what we have to factor in as well is think about the card. And think about who's at the top of the card. So, we've got the welterweight title on the line. We've got the biggest card of the year. Biggest eyeballs, or most attention, of the year. And we've got someone that loves to put on a show in Shavkat Rakhmonov. And we've got someone that loves to finish. And loves to do it in a spectacular, flashy way. So, again, where's that ego going to be at? Where's that game planning going to be at? Where's that rush of blood that's coming to his fists when the crowd's going crazy and Wonderboy hits him with a couple of shots and he wants to get a little bit of get back, biggest card of the year, needs to make a statement, wants to surge to the title with a good performance. He probably does that. A lot of questions. He could come out and prove me wrong. And that would be an interesting evolution because he comes from that gym. He comes from amazing coaches. He got everything in his favour. But it's
yeah.
The thing I said yesterday.
It's MMA.
The thing I said yesterday, and I started it talking about this Imanari role, and this is the thing, right? What separates the good from the great is decision making. And we're gonna see how good is his decision making this weekend. So I'm gonna go Wonderboy.
Great way to put it. Yeah, screw it. We're both on the Wonderboy train then. I mean, I've been spouting on stream for good 2 months about his striking sort of vulnerabilities in terms of his head movement because there's a severe lack of it. So that is on a technical front actually a weakness rather than a mental side of things. But yeah, I mean, let's jump into the honestly, the flyweight co-main. You know, I mean, I'm a big campaigner for flyweight matchups. Brandon Royval doesn't really do it for me personally. He had a great knockout.
Oh, you being serious?
Nicolau, I believe it was. No, he's fun to watch, but as a personality, I'm just like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a fun fight. Just for me, whenever that matchup comes out to you, I'm not going, oh my God, I'm so hyped. And I will more than likely be proven wrong because both those guys are fun to watch. It's just weirdly the name value doesn't stick out to me. I don't know. Do you not feel that? You clearly don't feel the same. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just not on the same front of like, wow, Brandon Royval's fighting tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not how I feel, you know?
There's no real name value in that flyweight apart from Brandon Moreno. There's no name values there, really, in terms of global superstars.
I think has it a bit.
No, he doesn't.
Not as much, but
no, he doesn't. He just doesn't. But in terms of fights, in terms of fun matchups, there's not many more fun matchups you can make in the UFC period. Stylistically, there's just not. There just isn't many more fun matchups that you can make. When you look at fun matchups, you already have to go down the... I believe that your best bet for fun matchups is going down the divisions, because you get, like we always say, you get higher pace, you get higher skill level, and you're probably going to see a bit more of a mixed martial arts contest. I think Brandon Royval is top 5 most entertaining fighters in the UFC. I truly believe that.
Wow, that's a claim.
But it isn't a claim, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was sort of getting into the sport and whatnot, and I just started learning the ropes a little bit more and started learning a bit more about what people feel about different fighters and getting more of a general consensus online, I kept seeing people say most exciting fighters, and then B. Royval was always in people's top 5s, and I was like, I don't even really know this guy. I actually don't even really know this guy.
Yeah, he's kind of weirdly flown under the radar, hasn't he?
But this was a few years ago, let me say. Like, this was a few years ago. This isn't recently. And
no, but even now, I wouldn't say he's really.
Oh, no. Yeah, 100%. He's still not very well known. Yeah, no, agreed. But my point in saying that was, when I then started watching, I was like, oh, this is why. This is why he's everyone's favorite fighter, or one of their favorite fighters to watch, because he is just... The way I think of Brandon Royval, whenever I watch him, he's just like a mosquito. Just the speed that he operates at everything with. And the biggest difference, the biggest shift that he's had in his career is he's always been an exciting fighter. He's always been in fun fights. The Kai Kara Francis, the Brandon Moreno's, even when he broke his shoulder or whatnot. But the difference he's making now is it's controlled chaos, where he's taking that finishing ability and he's taking his skills and he's still creating that chaos, but in a way that is in a more controlled environment. And we have a look at that knockout. That's one of the most slept on knockouts of this year, and one of the prettiest knockouts of this year.
Oh, it's a beautiful knee. Oh my god. Yeah, one of my
perfect knockouts you'll ever see. Like, genuinely, it's one of the most perfect knockouts you'll ever see. There's a lot of debate about, there was a lot of conversation about Arman Tsarukyan recently, and I understand why. Big stakes, big fight, great card.
I mean, it was a good knockout, but yeah.
But when you look
at nothing on that knee.
When you watch Brandon Royval, but you forget that knee to the right hand in the same sequence, in the same combination, off the same side, he just is able to pull off techniques that a lot of people are not able to pull off. And I truly believe that Pantoja is super skilled everywhere. I think his striking leaves a little bit to be desired. But I believe that he just gives more...
Yeah,
he gives a lot of openings. A lot of openings. And there's not many people in that division that can use that to their advantage as much as Brandon Royval. And I believe he's going to find his opportunities in that chaos. And I think he's going to finish Pantoja. I really believe he's going to finish Pantoja in 5 rounds. I think he's going to get a 4th round stoppage.
I'm glad you said it, because I'm going the opposite. Wow, okay. I'm glad you said it, because I was thinking the opposite. I do agree, he does leave himself open, but I think it's a lot of the times it's the case to take just to give more. I think that's the case with a lot of Pantoja's sort of fighting style and his performances, because he will take a lot to get that takedown, because once he gets there, it's damn hard to get away from him. Let's be honest. I think he'll submit him. He's done it before. I think he'll do it again. I think he'll find that rear naked choke. This is what he's so good at. You know, it's his way to work. And you know, Royval, his realm is on the he's good. To be honest, Royval's good everywhere. I take that back. I was going to say he's very good on the feet, but his submission game is very strong too. So you make a good argument. I do think, just offensively though, I think offensively, Royval won't be able to get off any sort of submission threat at all, because I think he'll be so focused on defending from Pantoja, who's such a submission threat as well. So for me, I see the rear naked choke maybe in the 3rd round. Just that's what comes out to me. But it is a fun fight. I just want to enjoy it. It's one of them, because flyweight fights at the top level are always awesome. So, and we're both huge campaigners for that. So it'll be a fun one. But I think we should just jump into the main event, because really that's what everyone's waiting for. I've talked about this endlessly. I'm sure you feel the same way as I do. That it's a close fight, though. I will say, before I give my prediction, the more I thought about this in the sort of week run up and the last couple of weeks, actually, it's a lot closer than I really want to admit it is. And I'm still going to pick Leon Edwards. I still think he's in the prime of his life. I do think Colby's slowly just coming over the hill now. I think the inactivity might hurt him. He is 36, I believe, now. I don't think he looked... I think he looked good against Masvidal, and he was dominant, but you know, he did get clipped, as everybody does. But
come on.
I don't know.
We can't
If it's
look
not
at
if it's
that.
not a
We
performance that
can't
sticks
look
out to
at
me and
that.
says, why not? Why can't it's his last fight? We have to look at that. That's the problem, is we have to look at a fight like that.
But I mean, we can't
at all, really.
No. You're 100%. You're not saying anything incorrect. I'm just saying we're talking about the pound for pound best fighter here, or one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, hasn't lost in nigh on a decade, skilled in every realm, conditioning off the charts. We cannot simply put the conversation of, like, no disrespect, but Masvidal going into that fight, a little pot-bellied Masvidal on his last fight in the UFC.
Yeah,
after,
of course.
I can't even look at that fight and think, oh, he looked like that, or he looked like that.
But the fact that that's the metric, so irrelevant, though, right? To me. The fact that that's the metric,
exactly, yeah,
because it was this most recent fight. That's the glaring hole for Colby for me. It's the inactivity.
True.
You know, as my point was, in that fight, I don't think he even looked that impressive.
No,
really. No. I don't think he was dominant, but it wasn't impressive. You know, there was no sense of urgency for a finish. You know, did well to get the takedown, but I don't think that's saying much when Masvidal's been known as much of a grappler per se. And obviously Masvidal over the hill at that point in his career. There's no shame in saying that. And he still got caught. You know, and I won't give too much merit to that because everyone can get caught. Nate Diaz caught Edwards, for fuck's sake. So
yeah, it doesn't
you know,
always.
It happens to everybody. But the pointers in terms of leaning towards an Edwards win, they're just far more in his favor. Really, they are. And I don't want to use MMA math too much, but being able to deal with the takedown threat of Usman as well as he did, it is impressive. You can't deny that. Every fight's going to be different, though. Miss Bisping said that himself when he fought Rockhold for the second time. Every fight's different. Stylistically, fighters fight differently. The way people set up takedowns, there's marginal little changes in technique that you're going to have to adapt to. And I still think that Edwards is going to be able to do that. I think he's versatile enough to be able to come into that fight. They would have done the tape. They would have done the sort of the background work and research with David Lavelle and the rest of the team at Renegade. I think he'll be able to withstand those takedowns. And if he does get taken down, which I do think he will, I think he'll be able to get back to his feet. He's got such a long and slender frame, and he's a freak athlete as well. I think he'll be able to just work his way back to that fence and stand up. I think he's going to have the strength advantage to do that as well, on top of the technique. And I think he'll find his mark on the feet. I actually could see a finish of Colby. Really, I could see maybe a late stoppage, as good as Colby's cardio is. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how. I'd love to see some more work in the clinch. Something we didn't get enough of in Edwards' previous fights, I don't think. There was some nice knees he timed against Usman in their trilogy match. I want to see more of that. Knees and elbows. Time those perfectly when on Colby's entries for the takedown. I think you're going to get a finish. That's the best route for a finish for Leon. Yeah, it's hands still for me.
There's a lot I can say on this fight, to be honest.
Yeah.
We know...
It's a fun one. I'm scared, but it's fun.
I'll just sort of create the narrative of the fight from my perspective. The one thing I will say is, obviously going into this, we have this conversation, or the MMA world has the conversation of Colby that we always know. Pace and pressure and output and volume and... Okay. But this isn't crazy to suggest. I'm not going to be crazy for saying this. Hasn't fought in a little while. 36 years of age, a lot of wear and tear on the body, extensive wrestling career, wars against Kamaru Usman most recently. Is he going to be able to push the same pace? Now, that answer may be yes. That answer very well may be yes. He's done nothing but prepare for this fight. Let's not actually also forget, he also did a fight camp and a weight cut not that long ago for this fight. So that could be in his favour. It could be in his detriment. Because when you get to that age of your career, additional weight cuts are not favourable. They are not favourable to you. That's never an advantage. Maybe the camp, because you're feeling sharp.
He doesn't have to cut a huge amount, though, in his defence.
He doesn't, but it's a weight cut. It's a weight cut, and
it's true.
It doesn't matter who you are and how much you're cutting. You're dehydrating your body. You're dehydrating your organs and your brain health, and you're putting your body through stress. And that is a potential. Now let's pretend that's not even a factor. He comes out, he's as sharp as ever, right? Which very well could be the case, even though that no one's ever won the title over 35. Of course, it would be the Colby Covington's to be the first guy to break that, of course it would be. And he's such a troll
would
that
be, wouldn't
sometimes
it?
I feel like sometimes people just win the belt on
Yeah.
troll level. Obviously
I
not
can't
taken away
not-
from his
I can't
skill.
not like him. That's the thing.
No, I like
can't not
Colby.
like him.
I
After
like
doing the
Colby.
research for my video on him, on my most recent video, I was cracking up at some of his. There's a moment I'll just quickly just say. I don't even remember after he fought beat Tyron Woodley. He ended up having a sort of Zoom, one of those Zoom sort of face-to-face interviews, and he's talking to Usman, and he starts getting really mad and laying into it. And then the fact he just in middle of that heated conversation just calls him Marty Fake Newsman, like casually, like as if it's just his name. He doesn't. It's not even part of a post-fight thing. He just says it in passing, and it just made me crack up so much. The fact that he's so committed that he just remembers to call him the full Marty Fake Newsman, while laying a massive rant down about how he'll beat him up in the rematch or whatever. It just made me laugh, and I like him because he plays into it. You could argue he oversteps the mark sometimes with the whole, the Matt Hughes thing comes to mind, but I think there's some people who've done a lot worse in the fight game, and he knows how to sell it. He knows how to sell a fight. That's the thing. He does at the end of the day, and he's fun.
I commend his ability to stay in character. Well, I say stay in character. At what point do you become the character?
That's the argument I made in the video. Actually, I was like, how far has he gone? It's
at what point do you
almost
become
him at this point, isn't it?
the character? Well, everyone I hear or see talk about him behind the scenes always says the same thing: incredibly polite, incredibly nice, incredibly respectful. And I do genuinely believe that. And you do see candid shots of him, and it does always suggest that. Going back into the fight though, just stylistically with this. We know what we're gonna get with Colby, right? We know what we're gonna get. We're gonna get pace. We're gonna get pressure. He's gonna come crashing into range. He's gonna switch stances, change levels. He is funky. There will be high output. There will be high volume. We know this. But Leon also knows this. And as you said earlier about the clinch, it was a good point because Leon has a fantastic clinch. And he knows that Colby's going to be entering range. He knows he's going to want to get close to him. And that's a very dangerous guy to do that to, Leon Edwards. Because if you go back to RDA, if you go back to Gunnar Nelson, that's when we see the impressive nature of Leon's clinch, his elbows, and more importantly, his angles. And if Colby gets in close, I don't know if that's any more favourable for him, to be perfectly honest. I just don't know where's a favourable range for him.
It has to be on the mat. That's the only way it's favourable for him.
But what's he going to do there?
That's the only area.
What does he do?
I don't think he'll be able to work his plan because I think Leon has the size and strength advantage. And I think that will outweigh Colby's ability to keep him down. So I think even if he does get him down, it's going to be a battle to keep him there. And everywhere else is in Leon's favour. He can't hold a candle to him on the feet, whether that's in the clinch or at range. For me, it is Leon's fight to lose when you look at it from a logical perspective. I think Leon's ground game is underrated as hell as well. I think defensively he's very sound. And Colby's not much of a submission threat either. So it's going to have to be a points. If Colby's going to get the win, it's going to be on points, and that's going to be it's a tough ask. It is.
Leon's been locking up submissions early on his career, even in the UFC. But listen, I can't sit here and obviously we know the credentials of Leon, and I've for many years I've said he was the one to beat Usman. He's the one to be the champion, 100%. Now this is a title fight.
Likewise,
Colby. I was going to say Colby's there on merit. He's actually not there on merit, but he's skilled enough to be in this conversation. Is what I'm getting at. Now, again, everyone can get clipped, everyone can get hit, and I'm not trying to do MMA maths, and I'm not saying, Nate Diaz rocked. That's not how fighting works. If Nate Diaz rocked him, it's a good narrative, then Usman would have knocked him out 9 times. That's just not how fighting works. They're completely different. But Colby will find the mark. He will find the mark. Like, Leon's not just going to put him out cold one shot in the first 30 seconds. Like, Colby will touch him. He will land. He will throw body kicks.
Now it's going to happen.
He will throw body kicks, and he will. Well, let's hope so. But he will find the mark, right? And he will find the chin. And it's not outside of the realm of possibilities that he does catch one on the top of the head and break his equilibrium a little bit, and then just throw a 20-shot combination and just keep pouring on and pouring on and pouring on, and whether he finishes in
that's true,
gets him on skates and gets him wobbly, and then potentially again. It could be a super close fight, like the Usman fight, where we're going, I don't know how this one goes, and Colby just takes it. I think Leon's going to do it, and I actually think Leon's going to head kick him. I actually think Leon's going to be able to head kick him.
Yeah, that's definitely on the side.
And hurt him.
Like, yeah, I see it on the stance switch. You can catch him with that leg kick. Leg kick, sorry, head kick. I mean, leg kick, speaking of, though, going to be very effective in terms of slowing Colby's advances down.
I think it's going to stop him
I'm
in
looking
the
forward
fourth.
to it. I'm nervous as fuck. I see a stoppage as well.
I think it's going to stop
you
him
can
in
talk
the
about Leon
fourth.
maybe having a bit of pillow hands. I think he'll get a stoppage as well. A TKO, or I can see it off a head kick for sure as well, as you're saying. I think he'll just find the mark with whatever it is. He will find that shot that won't put Colby out cold straight away, but he'll, as you said, on the other end of the spectrum, but dismantle that equilibrium. And
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. Maybe an elbow or a knee. I see it too as well.
A knee.
I'll go second round.
Knee.
I see it earlier, to be honest. Yeah, a knee on an entry maybe, or something like that. That's what we want to see, really. But you can also, it is definitely in the realm of possibility. Yeah, I'll go with the second round TKO for Leon Edwards. I think it's going to happen early, really, rather than later. Yeah, I mean it's an exciting card. I think if you want, we can dive into some creative stuff, or if not, we can wrap up. I mean, I don't know if there's anything interesting that's happened for you in this week, or besides the whole Paddy business, but we touched on that last week actually. So yeah,
I had this week is, I guess it's kind of important to say. So this week I officially opened my TikTok store. So now I've got both my comics on the TikTok store, but actually I've also got. So every time I make, it's not even a plug really, but they're in front of me, so I thought I'd show you. Every time I make food and snacks and whatnot, obviously I get so many comments of, I want this, give me that, send me that, all that stuff. So I thought, right, for UFC 296, what I'll do is I'll make a little Christmas hamper and I'll sell a few of them and send them out, right? So a little casuals hamper. So that's exactly what I've done. So I've got a little box here, and then inside it, I filled it with treats.
Oh,
so that's popcorn.
I can't really tell what they are on here from because the camera quality.
So that's two bags of popcorn.
The quality's not great at the moment.
I've made,
and we need it for the audio listeners as well.
Little pick a mix bags.
Oh, okay.
Mini Marylands. I made a hot chocolate cone with marshmallows to go with the cookies. So you got drinks, snacks, and then also I won't bother getting them out. I've also added 2 comic books in there as well. So there's not only a little bit of entertainment. There's some snacks. There's some drinks. There's some sweets.
Any successful sales yet? Or
yeah, I've had a few. Yeah, people loved it. Yeah, people loved it. Yeah, people really loved it.
Actually, selling branching out into selling products that people actually want, using your platform as an opportunity to sort of expand your horizons, which is a very good point. Something I'm going to look at doing as well. Obviously, I did touch on. I mentioned last week about potentially writing a book at some point, which is something I'm going to start planning within the new year, hopefully. So you make it. It's a very good. This is a net positive, really. You're not gonna. There's no drawbacks to it. Give it a crack, and it's clearly working for you. So fair play. I mean, on my end of the spectrum, I had a first live stream in a week or so. I got back in that yesterday. It was actually a really good live stream. We averaging about 21 people on the stream, which on YouTube was really cool. A new high for me. Well, not a new high. I think my record was like 60, but that's because of I was streaming right after the Ngannou Fury thing and other. I had a couple of streams like that where I timed it well. But this was a case of just people tuning in because they wanted to hear what I had to say, which was quite nice. A very fun time, but something I did have to say. First time ever having to time someone out in my YouTube chat, which was a fun time because were incessant. Right. So I don't want to go bore you with the debate too much, but we ended up having a debate about this guy was saying Cyril Gane is a better striker than he's a top 3 striker in the UFC. No. Well, yeah, he said that. He said he's a top 3 striker in the UFC. And I said he wasn't. And this guy just wouldn't let it down. And then he started arguing and being homophobic to people in the chat. So it escalated very quickly. He was dying on this hill. I timed him out 3 times and he kept coming back after each timeout. First message back, he'd be straight on it. In that same vein of conversation. I was like, mate, you got to give it a rest, man. I had to time him out 3 or 4 times. And for some reason, there was no option to ban him, which is weird. But yeah, that was an interesting experience. And I don't even want to hear your argument for that debate, whether you agree with me or not, because I was so sick of talking about it for a good half an hour. But I just thought I'd mention that before we wrap up because it was entertaining in some capacity. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to touch on at all, or?
last thing I'll say is it is important, like you said, I think for a very long time, like you said, it's important to eventually have something to, eventually at some point, not always necessarily straight away, to have something to sell. Not straight away. Because you have to create some brand. You have to create some intrigue, interest. You have to create some sort of character profile, if you like, online. Otherwise, you're probably going to fall into the trap of trying to find any old thing to sell and just try and make a little bit of money on it. I don't think, that isn't the right way to go about it, because there's 1,000,001 people doing that. So you sort of have to look at what you're doing, look at what you're creating, and look at what people are saying back to you. Not necessarily, I want to buy this or I want to buy that, but what do they like of your content? What do they like about what you do? If for you, even if I was to just spin it and put an example on for you, if loads of people were commenting, oh, I love your scripts, now there's a possibility online. This is actually a good thing to end on, really. Now there's a possibility online. We have a look at TikTok. The reason why TikTok now is so incredible is not only have they added the store, not only have they added it so you can pay in line and you can do everything online, through the app and all of that. They've also now added, for anyone listening to this, is really cool. TikTok have now added a series which you can put behind a paywall. So now what you can do on your profile is you can create a video series which you can then put behind a price. Now that price can be absolutely anything. It can range from 99p or 99,000, whatever you want to do, and however many videos you want to be in that. So you could create a 99p course on script writing, if you like. That didn't take you too long. It was a bit of a beginner crash course. Happy days. You can have a small entry. On the flip side to that, you can also create a very in-depth course on script writing or YouTube creating or how to make money on YouTube on the MMA space. And then you start creating a course on that and you can monetize it online. And now what we're finding is not only can we create courses now on TikTok, which is incredible, they're now digital products. So they're infinitely scalable, meaning for anyone listening, you create that course once, you will never have to create that again. So if that gets 100 sales or 100,000 sales, you don't have to do any additional work. So it really is a truly sensational,
that's exciting,
and I mean sensational opportunity that TikTok's presented, because it opens it up for anyone with any expertise in absolutely anything to create value. That's the most important thing, to create value and to be able to create a digital product which can just scale indefinitely. So that's definitely something I'm looking into as well.
Sure. I didn't know about that. That's very exciting. I'm actually going to look into that. I mean, I don't obviously have the TikTok pedigree right now, but we're getting there. But anyway, this has been the MMA Creators Podcast episode. I think we're 28 now. I've stopped counting. But we will see you next Sunday for a very special in-person episode. Stay tuned for that.